Всем привет, добрый день, guys, good afternoon. It is Monday, a glorious Monday afternoon here in the center of Minsk. And today and tomorrow we have a national holiday here in Belarus because it's Radyanitsa, or it's a day of remembrance where people go to the graves of their relatives and pay respects. I'm in a very nice place in Minsk. Right across from me is the Chleb-Zavod Numer 2. That's the bakery number 2. And it's over there, Gorachi Chleb, hot bread. But unfortunately, guys, the bakery's closed today because, as I mentioned, it is a holiday. It's a holiday here in Belarus, so we have today and tomorrow off. Most people, of course, have left Minsk. They've gone off into the city to, or out of the city, whatever, which goes to their dashes, visit relatives, and visit the graves of their loved ones. As you can see here, what we have, horse chestnut tree. Yeah, guys, we're in the middle of spring here. The weather is absolutely beautiful. At the moment, I was out and about there during the weekend. It was very windy, it was cold, but right now it's actually, the weather is perfect. Right here, this is Ulica Kisilova Street. And unlike the other day, well, it wasn't. It's not so windy, thank God for that. But anyway, speaking of holidays, so as you know, about last Thursday, we had here Victory Day on the 9th of May, Den Pobiedi. And this is a very, very important, perhaps the most important day in the event of many, many people here. Because the 9th of May, it commemorates the victory of the Soviet people. Of course, Belarus is part of the Soviet Union over the forces of Nazi Germany. And as I've mentioned in many of my previous videos, Belarus played a major role, the partisans did, in the defeat of the occupying fascists and, of course, the Germans. And of course, the people here played a heavy price in securing their freedom and, of course, our freedom as well. Because the Red Army, the Workers' and Peasants' Army of the Soviet Union, played a decisive role in the victory over fascism, and this must never be forgotten. Because here in Belarus, as I've mentioned many, many times, something like 25% of the population died during the occupation. And right now there is a concerted attempt to rewrite history. It's nearly 80 years after the 9th of May 1945, 79 years exactly. And as I mentioned, there have been attempts to not only to rewrite history, but also to minimize the role that the Soviet Union played, and the Red Army played, the Workers' and Peasants' Army played in securing that victory, their freedom. And as Ernest Hemingway once wrote, we have a huge debt. We will never pay off that debt to the Red Army. That's, of course, they gave us that role in defeating fascism and in gaining our freedom. And getting back to on Thursday last, Vladimir Putin, in his speech in Red Square on the 9th of May in Moscow in Red Square, made some very, very important points that I myself have actually made a number of times on this channel. And this is a headline from the Moscow Times. In Victory Day speech, Putin rails against the distortion of history. And he goes on to say, which he gave it as a defiant speech, slamming Ukraine and its Western allies over their alleged attempts to distort history and stoke regional conflicts. He goes on to say, today we see how they're trying to distort the truth about World War II It interferes with those who are used to building their essential colonial policy based on hypocrisy and lies. And he goes on to say, revanchism, the abuse of history, and an attempt to justify the current Nazi followers is part of an overall policy of Western elites to stoke new regional conflicts. Now, to add on to this, I'm not exactly a big fan of Vladimir Putin. I've said that a number of times. I prefer the other Vladimir Lenin, but he does have a point, and I do respect the point that he's made, because Vladimir Putin lost two of his uncles during the Great Patriotic War, and also he lost an older brother during the siege of Leningrad in 1943. And it's not hard to disagree with what he said. This is actually, we've seen it over the last 10 years, over the last decade or so, and now with the beginning of the Russo-Ukrainian war, the attempt to rewrite history, and it's all based on geopolitics, and we're seeing this false equivocation between Nazi Germany on one side and the Soviet Union on the other side. And a lot of like liberals and the right wing throughout Europe, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, these reactionaries are seizing on this in an attempt to muddy the waters and to justify their own agenda. And they use the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of 1939 to say that the USSR caused the Second World War, when that exactly was not the case, because history is all about context. And at the time, in the preceding 3 years before August 1939, Stalin had been attempting to broker an alliance with the Western powers, particularly with Britain and France, against Nazi Germany, because he knew the threat from Hitler, especially from the Spanish Civil War. And with the triumph of Franco and the fascists in Spain in 1939, in April 1939, Stalin felt that he had no choice in what he viewed as an insurance policy when he signed the pact with Germany in August 1939, because he knew that war was going to come and the USSR was not fully ready for that conflict, and he needed time, needed 2 or 3 years to get ready. And that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what happened at the end of the day. And another thing that I've mentioned is the attempt, particularly by the current government, the regime in Ukraine, in trying to hijack Victory in Europe Day, 8th or the 9th of May. And you know, it's something that we should and that we must resist. As I mentioned, equivocating Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, because not only is that historically incorrect, it's also a gross insult to the victims of fascism, to the Jews, the Serbs, Roma, anti-fascist homosexuals, anybody that the Nazis deemed inferior. It's not a new thing. I recall seeing something like this over 30 years ago in Yugoslavia, when the war broke out in Yugoslavia. Even before that, when the Western media and the narrative was set in minimizing the role or the agenda of the reactionaries in both Croatia and Bosnia-Herzegovina, and indeed Kosovo as well. And it kind of accelerated towards 1991 when the war broke out, because I do recall that before the outbreak of the war in Croatia in June, July 1991, we used to get a lot of documentaries detailing about the atrocities committed by the Ustasha. But as soon as that conflict broke out, all of that was seemingly buried. And the same fast forward into Bosnia, where Ali Izetbegovic, who collaborated, was a known collaborator during the Second World War, was suddenly repackaged as some kind of a Democrat. But it is a very worrying trend. And as I mentioned from my video about Hatyn, which I made last October, it is something that we should resist. It's near coffee. Nice. Slivoczny creamer, wafli. Нет, не нужно. Oh. 10 rubles. Milk at chalk cow. This is for Switzerland, for winning the Eurovision. Okay. Let's get some milk. Да, можно, пожалуйста. Нужно. Спасибо. That. All right. So anyway, I got what I came for. So I have my milk, bread, and milk and chocolate cookies. Of course, these are Swiss, and that's for Nemo for winning the Eurovision Song Contest for Switzerland. Not that I watched it anyway. Okay, so that is it, guys, from Pasha Pobedi. What a lovely afternoon it is there. And that's the place, Shedri is the name of it. And a building over there, behind those trees, is where Lee Harvey Oswald lived for 2 years in Minsk. Okay, but anyway, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you ever want to get around, guys, hire a scooter. Just download the app 11 and off you go. Okay, catch you later. So, do svidania, do stretchy, da papacheye, slanga fall.